It's Jonathan Hoenig. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for your service. Today, the president made a comment to the effect that he could win the war in Afghanistan, but he was concerned about the potential loss of life. It's not dissimilar to what he said a few weeks ago when Iran shot down the drone. He said he was worried about potentially 150 Iranian deaths. Do you think if this so far Cold War turns hot, if there is a military conflict, do you think the president, I mean, look, war is an ugly business, tough business. Does he have the fortitude to order strikes that could potentially kill Iranians?
Well, I believe if the worst case scenario happened and the situation required a U.S. military response, I'm sure that the President of the United States, as the Commander-in-Chief, would be willing to act. And I'm sure that if we see what President Trump did in Syria when the use of chemical weapons occurred, when the previous administration drew a red line and did nothing, it showed us that President Trump is willing to use military force if he thinks it's in the U.S. interests.
Luke, question for you. It seems as though this administration has spent months and months trying to bring our European allies around to supporting us in reestablishing sanctions and going back to the negotiating table. Certainly Britain now is on board because they have been pulled into this thing. How can France and Germany and other countries really stand by if their allies, like Britain, are under attack by Iran?
Well, France has already said that they want to participate in a maritime security operation at the request of the United Kingdom. And I think we might see some room for maneuver by the Europeans in the coming months because they're now in the process of forming a new European Union Commission. And this will offer a fresh opportunity for Europe to perhaps change some of their views and some of their positions as it pertains to Iran and the Iran deal. And I could tell you one of the optimistic things about the UK leaving the European Union when they finally do in October is that they'll be able to have more of an independent foreign policy. And a future Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be able to get more in line with U.S. policy because he won't have to worry about staying in line with the EU foreign policy, which is one of the lowest common denominator approach.
Let me just ask you, Luke, because you mentioned that there might be some ambitious sea captain from the Iranian side that takes matters in his own hand, causes a conflict. That happened back in the 1980s when we were escorting tankers, and we took out a couple of ships that were Iranian ships, and they stopped their monkey business for decades. Would we have the same effect now if, in fact, it did get hot and we shot up an Iranian ship, and no doubt that we would win that battle, but would that put them off, or would things escalate from there?
Well, it depends on the circumstances, of course, but I would say generally speaking, it would probably put them back in their place. The situation for the Iranians has not improved very much since the 1980s in terms of advancing their military capabilities, whereas the U.S. Navy and our advances in our technology and our capabilities has improved greatly since that time. And I visited U.S. naval personnel in Bahrain, where they're headquartered, and I've met with U.S. commanders in the region, and I can tell you they are absolutely ready for any contingency that it might be required or that might be asked of them if the Iranians do something they shouldn't.
Okay, by the way, we just have a tweet from the president. He just tweeted out, quote, "I am pleased to announce that a deal has been struck with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy on a 2-year budget and debt ceiling with no poison pills. This is a real compromise in order to give another big victory to our great military and vets." Quick reaction, Jonathan.
Well, I mean, the compromise on what? More spending. As I say, I just think back to the old party. I oftentimes think the Republicans are better as an opposition party, David. They were very effective in putting in the sequester, and I actually think helping to propel this economic recovery that we have had essentially since Obama.
Look, this is all because we're running up to an election. I mean, there's just no way anyone's really going to try and blow up the debt ceiling or anything else between now.
All right. Hey, Luke Coffey, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Sorry for the breaking news at the end there, but good discussion. Well, Bernie Sanders is